Are these birds?
Oh yeah, it's probably background on my side.
That's nice. That's nice.
Sounds like a
Alrighty.
radio to me. Well, it's probably a streaming device and not a radio, but
Alrighty. All right. So what is it? What is it that we want to discuss? So I very selfishly raised a subject that I started to work on 24 hours ago, and then decided to not work on anymore.
and Ludovic brought something up in conversation with me this morning. We were talking about XML.
That all has to do with the tiering, actually, right? More than XML.
Tiering, XML, caching, not caching, sizing.
Oh man. Anyway, all right. Let's start with that. That sounds
Okay.
good.
What?
Your
stuff.
topic.
All right. We could speak about sizing first, my favorite subject of the moment. Should I share my screen, or maybe not now? But if you remember, currently the size is a cache configuration attribute, and it is a.
Well, there is a size cache configuration attribute. Doesn't have to be the only one, but
It's
sure.
a capacity
Yeah,
configuration.
capacity.
Yes.
Right. And I wondered why the hell was that added to the cache configuration? Because in my opinion, it's not a caching concept. It's not a cache concept, it's a store concept. How much can you store? What's your top capacity? That's also...
So by my estimation, I think that statement's half true. I think having a capacity is a cache concept, but the unit is probably a store concept or store dependent, what the natural unit is.
Okay. What kind of
Which sounds,
abstract
but
capacity a cache would have?
Yeah,
then?
it's all hair splitting because yeah, the answer to that being you can't. I think you're right. I think it's bizarre. For example, I mean, it requires you to do unnatural things in things if you want to have that capacity there and do it in counts. Because the nice thing about doing a store level is each different store implementation gets to pick a natural unit.
All right.
So-
Anybody else has an opinion? No. So you can go on, Chris.
Well, then we move it, right?
So
We
just
delete it, and you let the stores define how you control their capacities.
just thinking out loud with the future in mind. So we move that to be a store-only concept. How does that play then with having reintroducing when we will introduce Arc, reintroducing the concept of pools? Do we envision something like this is a count-based pool, so you can share it with any store that accepts count-based?
We've never had a count-based pool.
Okay, wrong example. Let's take then a memory-based pool.
Okay.
So this is a memory-based pool, and
it's a store concern again. Again, exactly the same way.
Okay, so for example, it would be like this is a heap memory pool, so obviously it's shareable between
things that use the heap.
Yeah.
Or in reality, things that understand what that pool is.
Yeah.
So you could have heap caching tiers and heap authorities. Not that the second one's likely to exist or the first one, or heap stores, referencing a pool and saying, I want to use space from that pool.
And so it is indeed then and that doesn't preclude it from being a store concept.
Yeah, I mean we've had this discussion in the past on 2x line that we don't like. Well, at various times that we think that count-based capacity control at the cache layer is a weird thing, and it doesn't always make sense. And one of the arguments always been forwarded in favor of it, or put forward in favor of it, is this whole idea of, oh, I'm caching something where I believe the universe is of a finite size, and I know that size, and therefore I'm going to set my cache to that size or something on the order of that size. just in case something goes wrong, I don't blow it bigger than it should be.
No, but yeah, and I think, clearly count-based for heap is the cheapest capacity control you can implement.
Oh, right, yes.
So it makes some sense to have it just for that reason.
The example that always used to be put forward, which I think is a bogus argument personally, but whatever, was that the classic example was you're some kind of web shopping thing, blah blah, and you want to cache information about states of the US. And therefore, you say, well, I don't want to size my cache in memory. I want to size it in counts because I know there are 50 states. And blah, blah, blah. I want to set it. So I'll set it at 60 just to count some slop. And that way I make sure that if my application logic goes haywire, I don't cache more than 60 states. The problem with that is that, first of all, how much information is there about each state? If it's a ping image of the land surface of the state at a resolution of 1 pixel per square inch, then you're probably going to run out of memory. If it's what is this state's bird, then you probably won't. So the count means nothing in terms of resources unless you know what's going on with the thing.
No, but that's always been the contract, and I think people know that contract.
Yeah, but it seems weird to me that, because what you're really saying is, well, this is insurance against me screwing up my application logic. And that seems it's not the cache's job to do that.
In the example you just gave, yes. But I can imagine people having an application logic where they say, no, I just want the 10 hottest stuff in my cache. The rest,
why?
They can go to the database.
Why do they want the 10 hottest? Where does 10 come from? Why not 11 or 9 or 12?
I don't know. But already Ehcache will give you 9, 11, or 12, depending on...
depending on exactly how it's computed. But this is the thing. It doesn't... It's just a lazy way of making the decision. And really what you want to say is, I can afford this much heap, or this much off heap, or this much...
But so, for example, in that context, we also know that Arc, unless we find a magic new way of making it very much free, is going to have a performance impact.
Yep.
And so a way of using count-based is you take a cache, you put a number of elements in it, you look at how much space it takes, you infer a size from it, hopefully.
But the argument you're putting forward is an argument not for count-based, it's an argument for the store to choose its natural unit. And for the heap, that is count-based.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, then we're fully in agreement. So it's a concept.
Ludovic is not ruling out having, in fact, probably almost explicitly ruling in that the heap's natural unit is count-based.
Yeah. Okay.
Doesn't mean other units too, but its natural unit is count-based.
I was definitely not arguing against that.
Cool. Maybe we got at cross purposes then. Cool. So nobody has a strong argument for putting it at the cache layer, except Alex, who's about to put it forward.
No. I actually, the reason it's there is because it had nowhere else to go, and I'm not. The one thing I'm not really sure I understand right now is where we want to see it going. Because I just had a quick look at the pull request that Ludovic opened, and there is certainly something that slightly escapes me. So what exactly are you arguing for? So let's say we all agree it shouldn't be there, which I think makes somewhat sense. But where should it be?
In each store's config.
So, for example, for the moment, Ludovic, when I look at your pull request, you've got a disk store service config.
And it's empty.
But it's empty for the moment. But that's where you would put it.
Yes, it is.
Because I guess count-based would also be the unit we use for disk.
So how? Wait. Before we get there, how do we describe the topology that we expect a cache to use?
You mean the tiering.
That's the next topic. Should we move to that one? Oh, by the way, that's
I actually
that's,
think it's the first one. But maybe I'm thinking upside down.
I mean, it should have been the first one.
sizing being a store and not a cache concept. I haven't done
Actually,
anything in the
I
code
don't
about
know
it.
whether I agree with that still.
You don't think it's a what?
There's still time to debate it.
It's the split I talked about before, which is that the concept of having a capacity constraint is something inherent to a cache. I don't think it makes any sense to have a cache that's unbounded. To me, it ceases to be a cache at that point, unless it's
Okay, and so let's then because I guess where I'm guessing where Alex is going. So I may be wrong, but let's discuss tiering then, and let's revisit the.
Who knows where I'm going? Because I have no idea.
No. I said I'm guessing. So let's.
This is why he's the manager.
I'm not even guessing anymore. I'm like, I just let it go. So yeah. Let's discuss that because I fail to see how exactly this all fits together.
Can
All
you
right,
share what you're
someone
doing?
put that as a presenter mode so that everybody can see it?
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm talking. It's not useful. So how do? Yes, I should do that. Apparently, how do I do this? Present to everyone. There you go.
You might want
Cool.
to make your font a bit bigger if you can.
I think I have that lovely presentation mode. Better?
Yes.
Lovely. All right, so
Should we start with XML or with code?
I think with XML.
Okay.
So that's my proposal after a brief discussion of what we're going to put in beta 1. So this is how you're going to configure a cache, including its tiers and everything. So what do you think of that, Alex? First question. Complete rubbish, and you completely.
First question, yes. Okay. So what's a tiered store?
It's
The
a
store
store
with
in which you
tiers.
combine tiers.
So you're saying a store exists? It doesn't right now, right? So there is no tiered store concept at the configuration layer.
No,
No. So that's proposition.
that's the proposal.
No, I understand. But so can you add another cache below that? Just select all those lines and duplicate them. Yeah. So, it's not complaining.
What about the non-unique aliases?
Yeah, I think you should have, Ed. That's weird. Anyways, all right. So can you configure? Yeah, see, it doesn't complain. That's weird. I thought I had that working. Interesting.
Maybe Ludwig's setup
It's
is.
probably my ID that's broken.
Oh, is this the community edition maybe?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, then it could be that it does a little bit less of work. I don't remember. Anyways, all right. So can we try and make this sort of twofold, right? Try with make that LRU2 thing be a heap only cache.
That's
There you
the
have it.
Implicitly or explicitly, whichever. All right, so that's the. All right. Oh no, sorry, you had that there. I missed. So always. So that becomes a non-heap one. All right. So concept.
I mean, the naming obviously is open for discussion.
Right. I don't think that it should be. I think it should just be store probably. I'm trying to think in abstract terms here a bit.
I mean, so the way I look at this in my head is that in my head these things are shorthand or nicknames or whatever you want to call them, aliases for more complicated, I won't say complex, more sort of complex configurations.
But I think at one point we had that in some code that we did, right? Where actually wasn't class Ludovic, it's provider.
Well, I said class this morning, so you can blame me for that one because I couldn't remember how.
So what we had was provider, and so what you do there all of a sudden is you ask what provider to use to provide you the store.
Right, because it's the whole thing about the way that the store lookup works is it looks for a. It's to do with the way that the service registration works. It's going to ask for a store provider or store service.
Exactly, by default, but if you want to get like a very specific one, you should be able to specify the actual provider you want to see used.
You want the concrete class, or maybe not even absolutely, but maybe specify something a little more precise. Basically, when it does service discovery at the very beginning, it will register. It'll register the provider with every superclass or super interface of the thing that it provides. That was really badly worded, but it makes sense to me.
So that's sort of what we're arguing for. So then the specialized type on heap store just says that he wants.
It's just shorthand for store provider.
It's a shorthand, but it's also a shorthand that potentially provides you through attributes or predefined child element the way to configure that specific store, because we know exactly store by value.
Well, this is actually, Actually, this is where I'm not necessarily in agreement, but again.
But do you want to describe what you want?
Currently, it's here.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I'm changing everything I see. I don't see why store by value is only concern, for instance.
No, he's not saying it is.
Well,
I think that's a mistake, because that's actually the property of the cache. It's a bad example. What he was trying to indicate, count. Put your sizing in there. That's an example. If you move the sizing to here,
right. But you could have like every store coming with a capacity constraint that can be expressed natively multiple ways, count or byte.
Yeah.
Right. And there you go. So this is what I'm like really being trained.
I don't see what the problem is with that. What is the point you're getting at? Why is that a problem?
Exploding complexity for no added reasons. I think you're leaking.
It's not for no added. It's not. It's reality. The reality is that different stores have different natural units in which to express their capacities.
No, but which exploded complexity? If we don't want it to be an attribute, it can be a sub-element, and that sub-element can be something from the Ehcache schema that says count-based amount, and then memory-based amount. And then these elements can be reused.
I think this may be what I'm saying, is don't jump like all over the way up, because that becomes steering. This becomes slightly more complex than all of a sudden, or maybe not. This is what I have a hard time figuring out. So I think what I'm arguing for is having a single Ehcache store in there supported, which is it's that. I'm not really sure what we're arguing about XML. It makes my life much harder, but it's fine. And then you can override where to source that store from by providing a given provider,
right?
Or just by how you configure it. So this is NOS, and I'm jumping to tier. So if I stick to
Whoa! So whoa! So, what is so obviously there's the Ehcache : there's the store element that has a provider attribute that is a fully qualified class name of the concrete provider class you want it to use, which it will then go explicitly look for and fail if it doesn't find it, and if it does find it, use that.
And so we can have a default for that, and obviously Ehcache always needs a store, so the default could be on heap, and then if you don't configure any store, you end up with a non-heap thing. Then the problem you have is how do you configure the capacity constraints on?
No, I don't like that. I don't like using a default though. It doesn't make sense. It does make sense, but it's born out of the current state of the world, which is that in open source Ehcache 3 as of right now, there's only in Ehcache all told, when you have I'm going to mention tiering, but whatever. When you have a single tiered cache, there's only one tier type you can use. And so that's why you're saying default. What you really want is shorthand for this single ticket type, because that might change in the future. Maybe there's multiple different heap implementations that work different ways. Maybe someone decides they want to have the strict LRU used to be able to get
Oh,
by their
yeah,
system
and
calls.
that still works with that, right? It's just I was just trying to be more concise.
But it seems to me like it's Ehcache : store. I would rather it be, and it will play nice with the XML as well, Ehcache : heap store. And to have a different element and then have a choice. You either use store and be explicit, or you use heap store, or use, and you can add to that set in further down the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe.
And that is shorthand for store provider equals some fully qualified class name that's baked into everything.
All right. So if we all agree that the capacity constraints remains like a inherent property of a cache, even if it is a
Hang on, are you using that as a precondition for what you're discussing, or are you saying that we have actually all agreed that? I'm confused when you make that statement.
I thought we all had agreed about that, but I really wanted to make sure. This is why I'm restating that.
Agreed that.
And then the precondition for what's going to follow.
Hang on. So you're saying that we've all agreed that count-based capacities is an inherent property of a cache?
No, I said capacity constraint. I never said count-based.
Oh yes, the concept of having a capacity constraint is an inherent property of a cache. Yes.
Right. As such, then I think it should be expressible in a single way for all the stores.
So what if
So that means you'd like to have a capacity constraint element that lives next to the store element?
I don't think so. I think it's probably a child of the store element, which doesn't really make.
Well, what if the content? I'd always assume that the content of the store element was an access, was stuff pulled from another namespace that knew how to config the. It's effectively a service config.
What is a service config? Sorry, Chris.
The child
content
element of each cache column store,
meaning
meaning
be things.
I didn't know that, but okay.
That's what I'd assumed.
since
You're going to have to provide somewhere to plug in configuration used by the random provider that could come from somewhere else.
But if the deal is that every store is capacity constrained, because that's why would it need
so
to
what?
be,
So,
why not standardize the way to
oh, sure, but
configure
it's not really standardized, is it?
Then I don't know. Can you Ludovic? Can you open the heap cache Ehcache on heap store element so that we can put stuff in it? And so here go with something I saw that it was proposing Ehcache column capacity. And so we would have potentially something like unit, and then count, and then amount. So that's being very, very generic. So
yeah, that would be one way of doing it.
Right.
I wouldn't call it count. I would call it like entries, 10 entries, or
that's true. Yeah.
And then 10 gigabytes or whatever then you can probably also extend that.
So does every store type have to support every unit?
No, I don't see
Then
what.
How is this standardizing?
I'm confused.
It's
a single way to configure the capacity.
No, it's not though, is it? Because you're using one store and you configure it one way, and you change the store and it says, can't do that.
It's going to be, honestly, there are two options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be, there's going to be little exceptions.
Off heap won't support count.
Yeah, that's the one exception.
Disk, I would like to stop supporting count.
I'd
like that to stop
you would
supporting
like,
count.
but I'm not even sure it's sensible. I don't even sure it's sensible to not support count
Well, the thing is,
necessarily.
I would like to switch. To me, the natural unit for most of these is actually bytes. To me, the fact that a heap uses count is a special case, and it's because it's so efficient.
Mhm.
But it's back to the arguments that Steve Harris used to make about Arc, that if he could, when we developed Arc, he wanted to completely do away with count-based configuration, because if you consider capacity to be a form of resource control, you should always be using the unit of the resource, and even for the heap, that's bytes.
Right.
It's just that because count is so efficient, such an efficient way of implementing a capacity constraint, you keep it
Yeah,
anyway.
then I can do it. We just effectively, whichever way you look at it, you only always end up with a single counter example. Just pick the one. So what is it? This is why I don't want to like open like everything so whichever way he wants to, even though like there is
What about-
only ever a single outlier every
What
time,
about,
whichever way you look at it. So I don't even need agreement on the way we look
Right.
at it. It's
What
just
What about clustered, where the way the capacity is enforced is very different? If you have a clustered implementation that stores data on multiple servers,
Mhm.
there is no global capacity constraint. Well, beyond the fact that if
No,
you
but
control
that's-
capacity server by server, the global constraint is the sum of all of them.
I guess I see where Alex is going. That's just the way the store interprets the capacity. So for example, on Honeyp store, that makes sense. Capacity unit is count, amount is 10, and I guess the other unit we have is memory, and then the amount is, like we mentioned, 10 gig, 10 meg, 10K, whatever.
Yep.
And projecting a bit and discussing a bit of enterprise features, the day we have a clustered, we could decide that we stop having a global capacity. And this is going to be capacity per stripe as interpreted by the store.
But if you put it in the cache, you can't stop that.
What do you mean you can't stop that?
But you can't standardize it, pull it out, and make it something that all stores do, and then break that rule when cluster comes along.
No, it's all stores know how to interpret a capacity Ehcache standard element.
The real way I'm looking at this is just if we say it's a commonality across all caches, I think we should just expose it as such.
Across
Maybe
caches and
the
stores.
answer is that it's not feasible, but I seem to hear it the other way. It's just simpler to just abstract it entirely and just make introduce a new namespace. Well, even though we all said like it's a core attribute of every cache. So like a store is, only there is the additional indirection.
So this maps to a Java type, and all store providers need to understand that Java type, period.
That's more what this is why like I find it hard to, well, maybe harder to make it in an XML, but it's fine.
I mean,
and so wait, we can move the fun further, right? Because then you have the tiered stuff, because maybe this will help. We got the tier approach all of a sudden. So let's say we agree on that, right? Whether it's Ehcache, capacity count, or don't focus on whether it's generic or whether it's specialized. Well, specialized. Whether we specialize the two types, so instead of unit, right? So you could say that only accepts like count based. So you say capacity count. Like as one element, right? If you want to enforce that at XSD level, whatnot, let's say we've solved all that. Now, if you move like to the LRU2 cache up there, how do you configure? Well, actually, maybe you want to get rid of that one because that one probably is a lie right now. So the LRU cache up there, what is it like? Where does the capacity, whatever it looks like, thing go? Where does it go?
To each of the innermost elements. Because capacity remains a store concept. So you need actually to size the store.
Okay. Could almost buy that.
I'm not sure it's that simple.
It's fun. It's a fun exercise.
So here's the question: is in making this judgment, I don't think there's a straight answer to this. am I allowed to infer things about the way that the tiering works?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. So let me push it the other way around. What I would do is actually have the capacity still at the tiered store level, right? And then you may be sizing each tier, maybe, but the authority, I'm not even sure you can size it.
You ha ha ha. You
Yeah, I
have
can understand.
to size one of those tiers.
Yeah. One of the two. So effectively, the way that this all works, according to the Montreal design, right? You always, so what's there is kind of very explicit again, right? So if you want to simplify this to the extreme, sorry, Ludovic, I'm going to ask you to make further changes. Can you rename disk authority to only be called authority? And can you rename on the front end to be called, well, caching tier, because that's the way that we call it internally. I'm not saying those names are good, but
No.
you'll see where I'm heading, I guess, at some point. Some of you probably already know where I'm heading. So if you look at it this way, all of a sudden, you don't know what caching tier is all about. Caching tier, so what if instead of having a 2-tier system, like we just described there, what if you got a 3, 4, 5-tier system? So according to the Montreal design, as it's still called, the authority is a very special tier. It's the one that it's the lowest one that knows everything, right?
Yep.
Everything that it contains is also could be contained. Well, sorry, every tier above it, whatever it contains, is also contained in the authoritative tier.
Yep.
Right, within the authority. The caching tier, though, is just something that needs to be able, that it has a contract in how it interacts with authority, but it can contain anything, including multiple tiers itself. How those multiple tiers then decide to interact with each other is irrelevant.
Well,
so when we say tiered store, are we saying, so this outermost element there, are we talking about the Montreal design, or one thing that exists today?
The way the caching tiers interact is irrelevant. I disagree. We have a strict pyramid in the model.
Nope.
That's in our implementation.
Oh, you mean in terms of sizing now?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Because
is that what you meant? Because that's not what I meant. What I meant in the way that they interact is whether those caching tiers above have an overflow model or a authority to like really a pyramid layer is up to you. It's irrelevant. The design works with both.
Okay, I was more thinking about pyramid in the sense of access. So you go to the closest to you, and if it doesn't contain the element,
no, you don't even know about that. The caching tier is a single tier that sits above the authority from the tiered store's perspective.
No, that I understand.
You decide to go to the lowest tier first and then walk the tree up because you think it's fun. So be it.
Okay, I want to turn all this on its head suddenly because things are starting to really bother me. The more I look at this, the more it seems wrong to me.
Cool.
So, in the cache, so in your heap cache, right? The capacity that says count 10.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. When you're constraining the capacity of a cache, right, what you actually want to do is constrain its resource usage. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so what the heap cache's capacity constraint there means is constrain this heap cache / heap store, depending on which way you think about it, to use no more than 10 times the size of the elements that you store in it of heap. And
I think you're pushing it, but I'll let it go, yeah?
Well, no, yes, I'm having to contrive it in my head because count is synthetic.
Yeah, I understand.
As far as resources go.
Speak with memory. I mean, Ludovic,
right.
you can change
the
memory
right.
and
Right. So no, but okay. So my real answer here is that
make it then megabytes and make it 10. Don't
whatever. The point is that the way I'm starting to think about this, the way I feel like you ought to think about this, is that you configure a cache and say, this cache should be limited to use X amount of heap, and X amount of off heap, and X amount of disk, and X amount of space on the cluster, and X number of files, and X amount of CPU, and so on. Like, I know the ones I was getting into are ridiculous, like X amount of CPU and stuff. But the point being that what you're really, the unit the user cares about is the cache. And so what they want to say is this cache can use so much heap and so much off heap. Louis shaking his head, or it looked like. And that's why, I don't know, it's almost like, you know, the model we used to have for the pooling for Arc.
So
where at one point
this is why I made this all move up, so that we have like a complete view of what we're trying to achieve. And I think it will help. Instead of moving from the simple case to the hard case, I would rather make it all work. This is because of this thing last. I think we all agree with. So you want a cache to have like constrained resource.
Yes.
Footprint. Exactly.
Yeah. So when we designed Arc in 2x, one of the things that we talked about doing and passed over was the concept of not having a pool associated with a cache manager and a pool option associated with a cache, which is effectively the way Arc works. We said we would have pools be independent. You could define pools and then bind caches to pools.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels to me like thinking about it that way here might make sense in that if you think about Arc, what you really want to say is, here's a pool of resource. It's so many meg of heap, or it's so many meg of off heap. And this cache uses this heap pool, or this cache uses this off heap pool, or this cache uses this disk pool. And that pool might be a pool defined within the cache and only used by that cache, or it might be some pool defined outside the cache and it's shared amongst caches. But in that picture, it doesn't make sense to define. You're not defining the capacity of the tier, or the capacity of the caching tier, or the capacity of the authority. What you actually define is, you define the size of a pool of resource of a certain type, and then you tell the caching tier or the authority which pool it's using.
Okay. So I'm really not sure what you're proposing. To me, what we're doing there is each cache gets its own pool. That's the way I look at this.
You're actually defining that each.
No, but that's because for the moment we don't have a pool concept. I don't see the long description you made, Chris. I don't see it. For me, it's orthogonal to what we're trying to discuss.
Yeah, me too. I'm confused about the point you're trying to.
I'm thinking that the capacity constraints are not capacity constraints on stores or authorities or caching tiers. They are the sizes of resource pools that should be declared at the cache layer.
Yeah, but you want to support the case where like each cache has its own pool without forcing the user to deal with the added indirection that he doesn't care about.
But
then you can put a tag, rather than having the each cache column capacity unit equals count amount equals 10. You can put put it there.
Yes, and just don't put it like that then. Just have I wouldn't do it like that. If we do it like that, then what I would have is heap equals and a value. That kind of thing. Directly, like as direct.
You mean the element's called heap?
Well, that's
no. The element is called capacity, but I'm directly using.
That's the elements in there. No, I wouldn't use. Yeah, nesty elements in there. We actually discussed that Actually, that was your idea. I was in the hotel room when you put that forward, Chris. To actually have the tiering be expressed exactly that way. Capacity. Yeah, the tiering. Look, do it. Type unit equals whatever you want. Look here, right? And
you're saying express the tiering by effectively saying what resources you can use, and if it sees that it can use disk and heap, it'll say, fine, I create a two-tier cache that's disk and heap, and I use those resources.
Yes.
That's fine. I mean, yes. I mean,
you're gone with the store stuff. See, that was the thing I was trying to do.
I'm not actually saying that this necessarily does away with the store. But you could potentially make the store
No,
optional.
no. It can make the store completely irrelevant in that case if you want to use
For
the
that,
Ehcache provided stores. So this means the capacity remains a cache concept,
Mhm.
but
Yes.
becomes much more than what it is today.
And
So we stop using a comparable long, we move to a specific type.
actually,
That probably can then be.
Well, you
decomposed
probably
over-
so no. I would actually make the. Here's the thing. Yes.
And then if you do that and you want to use what we provide, what Ehcache provides out of the box, you can drop the store declaration. And if you want to actually use your own store, you go down, you use your own store, and it's up to you to interpret the capacity.
Yes.
Right. Right. Well, what we're arguing for is, but that's already feasible today. You don't need the store element for that. You just, we don't need it. So if you want it, cool, be my guest. Just wire your own like namespace in it, and it's going to be provided to your thing, and it can resolve to whatever. We don't.
Here's something blipped into my brain just then. I can't remember what it was. Crap. Oh well, probably wasn't important. I don't like capacity. Well, capacity maybe.
No,
Yeah.
Yes,
no.
that's-
Well,
I guess
if we want to solve that naming
Makes
problem,
sense.
that's a different
Yeah.
thing.
Anyway.
I wasn't at all.
So okay. So here's the question.
I like
Can
that. So this is the kind of
Yes.
abstraction I was
Right.
trying to get at the beginning. Now.
Okay, cool. Here's a question: can you specify should should unit exist?
Yeah.
Yes, it
So
should.
sorry. Yeah. I think it
Well, what are the legal values? Basically, is count a legal value
entries.
For heap, yes.
or entries?
Whatever.
Heap, it can. If you have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's all right. I would. Okay, so what? Here's the thing. I would like to move that to a store-specific configuration because I think it's a particular artifact of the way that the heap store works. But I guess that would be really horrible because that's the way most people are going to configure, and we don't want to make the most common configuration.
I'm very confused again why you raised the stores. So if we're, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with everything I see still, but you have this there. It says heap. It says unit. It doesn't need to be the same type. It could be one extends to the
Right.
other, so that
Yeah,
only heap accepts
for
unit.
example-
There is no type system problem yet.
No, no, I'm not saying there's a problem. It's just from a like the way I picture it in my head is the store is the special case. If it weren't for the fact that the vast 90% of all the users in the world are going to configure a heap tier, just a heap cache with count-based capacity, then what I'd want to do is say resources are always in memory units, and you want to configure a count-based heap cache, you have to do it through some other contorted means because it's
just have unit default to memory.
Actually, I wouldn't. But here's the thing: I'd actually have unit default to count for heap because it's so
You
common.
can. Honestly, I'm not really sure.
I mean, no, it's fine.
There is no problem, and you can do whatever you want.
There's a problem in my head, but I don't think that it should be a
No,
problem.
we can even ditch the unit. If the value is pure numeric, it's a count. If it ends up with a memory size,
No, that's
No,
that's
I'd
horrible.
rather it be
Then it's
explicit.
open. Yeah, that's shit.
Now,
Make everything explicit.
we could arguably, I guess the
I hate
unit
that,
and heap.
the existing Ehcache config, by the way. I think it's
Yeah, make it like that rather than making it a string parsing problem in the code.
Yeah.
And so the units then would be entries or count, whatever you want to call it. Probably megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, and not even bothered bytes.
petabytes, heptabytes.
no
Petabytes,
nibbles?
exabytes, something in other bytes. I can't remember what the one after Exa is. Yeah, we should put the eyes in. I want the eyes back.
Those are the
That
best
joke
ones.
won't mean anything to anyone who hasn't really closely watched SVN, but I want the eyes back.
Oh, the ice back. I want the ice going.
Or at least, what's more, I want MB interpreted correctly.
Okay, so
So that solves that problem. And are we saying we express the tiering in that way, that the tiering is in that by default, unless you choose otherwise, the tiering is inferred from the resources that are available.
I have to admit I
That are
like that.
constrained. So effectively what we're saying is that if no resource is specified, the constraint on it is considered 0.
So here's the question: is the service that gets looked up is the service that gets looked up the store service, and does that basically take the resources and go, this is the thing I can do with it?
Yeah, I think we have a default store provider that interprets the resources
And builds
and
a thing of the
decides what to
correct
do.
topology.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. It's really intent focused. I like that.
Yep, I like it too, I admit.
Okay.
Now, wait. So that works.
We've got 10 minutes for Alex's problem.
I know, but
No, that's fine. That's fine. My problem is
so
it's
that
totally
works.
neglectable and actually driven by this. So
That works if we agree that there is no other concept that is store specific.
no, that is
No, it
still
doesn't.
not
It
true.
still works.
So
You
look
can
at
always
that.
add
Bunch of,
conflict.
let me use a concrete example. So one of which would be the disk store. So the disk store can be used in multiple ways. And actually, like Ludovic made a proposal, I'm going to be nitpicking because I really hate the enum values.
By the way, your
names.
disk out resource probably wants a path.
No,
where-
exactly not. I don't think that's
want
what
it
he
to.
wants.
It
And
wants
what do you mean with
disk
this?
store.
Do you mean persistence or do you mean time swap?
Ah, okay.
What do you mean? This is a persistence concern. It has nothing to do with the resource as such.
Yeah, that's true. And
So you're saying it's 100,000
combined.
megabyte of disk, but where the disk is up to whoever creates the files. It's just up to us to track all the files that get created, where they are, how big they are. Blah,
And,
blah,
and
blah.
that happens via a
File
service that deals with files.
Right,
Yep.
and you could do so.
persistence of
That's
not
the
file.
local persistence service configuration stuff that's already there. But what you want to possibly express on the cache is how it needs to make use of that thing.
Mhm.
So one thing you could have in there now, sudden, is a persistence element that defines how to use the disk. Whether it would really mean like, and I'm not even sure that persistence actually is the good name, right? Because it implies what it implies, i.e. persistence, and it's not necessarily what you mean.
Here's a question: is the Ehcache resources list, the resources tag or element, whatever you want to call the thing, is that heap or maybe off heap disk other? I.e., can you use a command and define their
You
own
can
resource?
extend it, yes.
Yeah.
'Cause it
So
would
you
be
get
one way.
access other on the end of there, so they can stick other resources in that only they know how to.
Yeah, again, your right heap. What we mean is the current memory store that we think that we have, but you could specialize it to another one. It's like the example you took, right? You could. There's a bunch of things that you could do there.
Well, there's two ways you can plug in. One is you can add your own resource type and define that and know how to interpret it. And two is you can have your own resource parsery service thing that constructs the stores that interprets heap to not create our heap store, but creates some other kind of heap store.
Yeah, you just end up needing to maintain much more code if you go that
Well,
route.
that's
So,
your business.
Quick question with regards to what Alex said. So, Alex said that if you don't specify a resources, then it's assumed to be 0. But I guess
You mean no resources?
heaps behaves differently.
No,
Oh,
no resources
actually,
doesn't
no.
work.
Resources heap mandatory.
I would have said that heap is no.
Yeah,
Okay, so make resources a choice. It's either heap or list heap blah blah blah, which means
yeah, that's another thing that caught my eye. Okay, Ludovic, it's one more less person that we need to convey, and we're only asking you to type whatever we tell you to type. So that's fine. Thanks.
you can express your thoughts through the IDE.
So what I think is the downside of what we just did is indeed that each cache resource becomes mandatory, because otherwise you have no way to constrain your heap, and you always want to constrain. We did agree that a cache is inherently like capacity constrained, so you need to express your. Where's Ludovic?
What's he doing?
Watch out! We can see what you're doing, Ludovic.
Doing.
Don't go read this email you got. So crap, I lost it. So you need to express that, and you need to express it to at least one tier. And in our books, until we change that,
Resource type.
one resource, and that's heap usage, right?
Most likely.
So yeah, so I find it kind of sad. You know what? Maybe I have a solution. Maybe it's in the
You're
name.
breaking up for me.
I'm breaking up.
You just broke up as you said that important thing that I didn't catch.
Maybe I have a solution. Or let me put a proposal forward.
Okay.
Heap is special in multiple ways. It's if you don't define anything else, that's the one that we want you to use.
Yep.
And it's also special in the way that it's the one that's always there.
Yep.
So why don't we have this Ehcache resources be renamed to Ehcache something, so that the thing you configure there is always, in terms of attributes, so it can be an empty thing, is always how you configure the heap. And then you can specify further.
Oh, so you're saying? Oh, well, okay. So what I was going to say is that you give the user a choice. They either specify a resources tag with a list of resources, or they specify a heap tag at the top level.
Oh, that's another way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That way you don't have these extra 2 lines. You can just go straight.
Yeah. With
Ehcache : heap.
Yeah.
It can be the same. It can be the same tag.
It's going to be the exact same tag, Ludovic. Yeah.
Just dupe the line 38 and move it up by 2 lines. Command D. Yeah. All right. That way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do either straight heap or resources with the heap embedded in it.
Right.
And that way, the simple use case is just heap unit megabytes value 10.
And so these becomes a mandatory choice. You either have heap
a mandatory choice. Oh yeah. It is a mandatory choice.
It's a mandatory choice.
Yeah.
You need to pick one of the two.
in XSD.
Yay! I'm speaking in constraint.
Yeah, I like that.
The only disappointing thing about this is that we can express all of this with XSD.
What? Oh, yeah.
He wants Schematron again.
Okay.
Damn it! Need to argue it for it to be complicated.
All right. So
are we going to enforce the pyramid thing that the heap is smaller than the off heap, which is smaller than disk? Because you couldn't do that with Schematron. We couldn't do that with XSD, but you could with Schematron.
No, I don't think we should. I don't think we should.
Crap.
Because it would be a special. Like you can't actually do it. Oh, maybe you can do it with Schematron.
With Schematron, you can, because you can express it. You can express it's string complete.
Watch out! There is a gotcha, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the units.
No, you don't know what there is that. And no, more than that, you don't know the complete list at any time. It's extensible, so anybody can add whatever he wants, wherever he wants. The only thing that's
are we saying that the order there means something? Because I'm assuming it doesn't.
Yes, I was.
What does it mean?
Like
you
whatever
think that it uses is. So you're saying that's how it structures it?
Yes.
I would have said that it's not that. It's just a resource pool, and how if we want to put the off heap in front of the heap, our business.
It's just the same, Ludovic. With arc, it's the same. Heap here expresses arc because it has the memory size, and if it ties into a pool, we can just add an attribute.
Okay, so the way I would do this is to have you could.
And you have the pool defined at the cache manager.
Let's not go there.
You can do. There are a bunch of solutions like that.
There are a bunch of solutions. I don't think it's a problem at all.
Yeah.
What I just saw made me very uncomfortable, but I don't want to go there.
But you can imagine defining a resources thing like that outside of a cache, and then somehow referencing that resource pool.
Yeah.
How that is achieved and what that external definition looks like is.
Yeah. That's the box I don't exactly. That's the box I don't want to open quite yet now. But yeah, effectively it's that. The way that I look at this is that heap effectively does 2 things. It defines a pool of 10 megabytes and says this cache is supposed to use this pool.
Yep.
And you want to explode that by saying pool definition in one spot and link this cache to this pool in where we are. So how we achieve that, yes, what you wrote would work like this bunch of ways.
The one thing you want to make sure is that you make the reference scheme so complicated that you can't do it in XSD.
Actually, I think this is going to be...
You might actually run into problems with XSD doing that. Its limitations. It's pretty limited with that stuff.
Nah, it's not that bad. Sorry, Chris.
About that, yeah.
All right. So that's good.
And so does
And
that
so-
mean we do a similar thing at the code level?
Oh, yes.
So we work with builders to which you pass capacity constraint, and then the store wiring happens by magic, unless you
Well, it
override
happens by Ludovic.
the
Magic is
default store from us.
Right. And
Yeah.
see, I discussed that with Ludovic this week sometimes, but effectively what you want is and actually now suddenly could actually be Ehcache as the class, or actually the cache manager, rather. It's concerned to actually say, all right, I got those constraints, now let me see how I best honor them. And so it infers stuff based on the constraints, asks the service locator to figure things out, give it like the proper thing, and then move from there. So I think you end up.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so it would work. Yeah, let's say it might work if you add your custom resources also.
Oh yeah, totally.
But that's probably a longer term thing. We don't want to just have that in right now.
If it's not in, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's a whole. Again, because of my twisted thinking on all this, I don't think it's a whole lot more work. It's actually pretty easy, but I understand it may not seem simple when you're lost in the code. And actually, most probably, if I start looking at it now, suddenly I would like U-turn and say, "What was I thinking?" But I remember this sort of exact same thing came along with regards to the store. It's just fun because it just all works.
Yep.
So and especially with the whole, if you make it all like load lazily, certainly at a cache manager level, it works pretty neatly because you can short circuit everything by registering even services that we know about, your providers, your factories or whatever, or the service itself actually, before it sees that it doesn't know about it and falls back to a service loader from the JDK to resolve it. So it's actually pretty neat. Anyways.
Okay. Yep, looks good.
So now, I think, Ludovic, you should probably all make it all happen. And the good news, I'm pretty sure, is going to be some bitching about 18 plus. Some complaining and some argumentation about the naming. Because I will admit, I'm not happy with a single thing on there, other than maybe value. And I'm not even sure about that. Like the naming right now. Everything that's red, certainly, and I say every element, I'm not really sure I like any single one of them. Resources, heap, disk, value, unit, I don't know.
What are your...
I'm not saying I know.
This is naming. You can't object without proffering an alternative.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure I will have opinions by tomorrow.
Better be by tomorrow.
Sorry.
So the challenge, Ludovic, is to pick the worst names you possibly can. You won't fool me into thinking you're a human by misspelling things. So this is where he's scripted in the Emacs psychiatrist.
All right, cool.
Is that it for today then?
Yeah, I guess
well, we're out of time, aren't we? So
yeah, we are. But conceptually, I think it all fits together. I think there may be then.
Yeah, I think
some arguments about naming, but it's not going to be a big
deal.
deal.
My only slight fear is that we're going to get pushback from everyone that's not in this meeting. They don't like it, but at this point, tough. You weren't in the meeting.
They should have been in this meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, and so if you're listening to this as
and you don't like it,
user of Ehcache 3 and don't like it, please let us know. Yeah, but let us know. Let us know with arguments.
Yes.
Why did we miss something?
There's one problem with that statement, Louis. No one listens to these meetings.
Oh. We'll get an email in 10 years.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well,
Cool.
seems like a whole lot of fun coming ahead.
I think that's infinitely preferable to the way things are done now.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, I like it.
And
I
again-
actually like it.
You had this idea. I think I was on my way to Kiev.
And I prototyped that almost exactly that in.
You did
in
that
the
live in some meeting. Bunch of people were there. It's
And we didn't
Kiev.
like it.
It's probably a long time ago. Oh no, it's just that like it's. I'm not sure what.
It was too
how-
far removed.
Right, and it wasn't an option to change anything we had anyways. It's just like conceptually trying to flesh things out. And I like
Oh well.
Okay.
All right.
See
All right.
you guys
We still-
next week.
Yep.
See you guys next week.
Next
yeah.
week.